So we're here because today is our 20th wedding anniversary. Apparently I've turned into a smoker. And I've never heard anyone talk about marriage the way I conceptualize it in my own mind and brain. I've never heard anyone talk about marriage in terms of what we have gone through and maybe are still going through.
Yeah.
Because this wasn't like a joyous approach to this date. I, in fact, had like a panic attack.
No, we've really struggled even up to this. I mean, even my mom texted me this morning, happy anniversary, and it's hard to know, like, how do you respond when it's not exactly happy? Like, I wish there was a different word. Yeah, like, there's lots to celebrate. There's also lots of unresolved pain.
Grief.
And grief. Yeah, so...
moments of deep regret. And also, like, enormous amounts of, like, love and respect for one another.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And grace. Like, even, like, both of us made wild amounts of mistakes.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think that I was thinking about that today, and like, so 20 years is not an insignificant amount of time, and I try to think like, you don't owe me anything, and 20 years is that's a lot. You know, I think it was September of 2021. We had a really like a reckoning on a date night. I don't want to go into all the details of that, but I was thinking like, oh, that's almost 3 years ago, right? So, I think I started really, really trying. Like to make up ground relationally, but it probably was another year before I started figuring out how to do that well.
Yeah.
And some of even the missteps in that first year of trying to like make progress actually made things worse.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know how you would view it. I'd be open to hear it, but I feel like maybe 2 out of those 20 years, I've been a good partner to you.
Yeah.
Like a tithe. So, a little 10%, you know, and it's like that means that there's 90% of the rest of it.
Yeah.
That hasn't been all that happy.
Yeah, and I mean, to be very honest, I mean, I think the problem, like you weren't as whole of a partner in so many ways, mostly because we don't set up society for men to be partners. We don't establish systems, patterns, habits, and stories that build a foundation that men will come to heterosexual partnership as full equals and partners. We don't do that. And so even I think you were a very good-willed person and a person who was really trying. And even despite that, we were just talking about this yesterday. I really struggle because he will often talk about the past and say, I was really trying. I wanted to be a good husband. I knew that was true, but I was like, stop saying that, please. Because we both know that like your number one goal for a period of years, without a doubt, was actually pleasing your own ego. Like the number one thing that mattered to you most is how other people were going to view you. So please stop saying during that season your number one goal was to be a good partner and a good husband, because it wasn't. It was a good partner and a good husband and a good man as defined by a greater society, which is not the same thing as being a good partner to me.
Right.
And actually, it meant often that you were the antithesis of a good partner to me, because you ultimately were seeking to please a standard that had everything to do with maybe what a society tells a man to be, and not very much to do with like meeting the needs or the communication of the person right in front of you, which was me.
100% true. I think when you've verbalized that before, I think I need to be more specific. Sometimes I do look back and I feel, I don't know if shame is the right word, but just really saddened that as a man, like you're given these messages of like what is expected of you and that will be good enough.
Yeah.
And so I'm not alone in this. I've talked to many men and many friends who I think we followed those rules. And so I actually wouldn't say that I was doing the best I could be to be a partner to you, because I wasn't. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any world I could say that to be true. Mm-hmm. I think I could say I was doing the best I knew how to do.
Yeah.
And those are nuanced, but not actually that important, I guess, in the impact of this, right? Like I think that's what I have to kind of grapple with every day, is that I think I've learned a lot about how to be a good partner to you or to anybody. And also that may not matter as much as it could have, or that I wanted to. You know, like...
Yeah.
So I think that these things... I think we've struggled around our anniversary for a while now, though. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I think it's kind of a trigger, but maybe this one being a milestone one was bigger for some reason. I don't know. Like...
Yeah. Yeah. We plan on watching our wedding video sometime this week, and...
a live stream of just our reactions to it.
I don't know if we need to do...
Too private.
I refer to it as returning to the scene of the crime, and...
I wish that wasn't
in my own
accurate.
Mind.
Yeah, we were...
And it's my own crime. There's no blame in that. Like, I should not ever have been marrying you. I was young. We were 21.
Yeah.
I was 21. And I wasn't marrying you because I loved you.
Yeah.
And you actually knew that to some
which
extent.
is on me too. Like I was hoping to earn that.
Marrying you because I knew you were a very practical choice. It was almost like an arranged marriage. I arranged for myself because I grew up in a very conservative Christian environment where marriage was the default setting. Like, of course, you're a young woman, you're going to get married. Even young marriages weren't necessarily encouraged, but kind of, because of course you can't have sex before you're married. So if you're already together, the next step is to get married because you can't live together, you can't have sex, you can't even be able to be certain closeness to each other without getting married. Right. And the truth of my life was at that time, I just knew that was going to be something that happened. I'd already had other proposals of sorts, and I just knew that like this was going to keep happening until I just say yes to one of them. And I really don't know what else I'm doing with my life right now. I'm just a young person who's a little lost, and didn't feel like there was a lot of room for mistake making, for various reasons. And I was like, well, this person I knew, and this is very sad, that this was my ultimate reason for marrying you. I was like, I knew without a doubt you weren't going to hit anyone.
Yeah, not going to be physically violent.
You're not, and he is, to his amazing credit, you're one of the most physically safe human beings I've ever known on planet Earth. Truly, like one of the most in control of your person. And I knew I wanted that in my life, and I knew that if we had future kids, I knew without a shadow of doubt I did not want violence to be part of their lives.
Right. Well, in reaction to how you grew up in some ways.
In reaction to how I grew up, and also in reaction to the way I'd watched many women be abused in their marriages and abused in their lives, and I had never once seen a person say, why do men hit women? I had only ever seen, why do women choose men who hit? This is a pattern where we hold women accountable for the actions of men, and I knew that if it happened that I had found myself in an abusive scenario and I was blamed for it, I knew deep down that would break me in a way I don't know if I could recover from. So I ended up choosing someone I didn't truly love and in many ways didn't admire. And not because you weren't wonderful, but because of my own personal values. Your values, we didn't share a lot of values, to be quite honest, outside of our faith. Yeah. And so I didn't, I just was like, I knew he's not going to hit anyone.
Yeah, and I was like cocky the way many young men are. I just thought like, I kind of knew that going in. That was definitely a pain point. I thought like, oh, like I desperately want to be admired. But I also had this like martyrdom of like, I needed to earn it. Like there were lots of people that admired me. I think still do.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. You were one of the most extraordinary people. Like being a witness to your life will always be one of the greatest honors of mine, regardless of how well we go together or work out or don't. Sure.
But I've thought about this and I'm saddened by it a little bit. But you guys remember that like Looney Tunes, cartoon Pepe Le Pew? He kind of was always stinky, but he was always like going around trying to find like the girl he couldn't get. And I feel like that was way too close to reality for me. I liked you because you are enthusiastic. I liked you because you have a great heart for people. I liked your infectious laughter. I liked how much fun and adventure. And I wanted to participate in those things. But I also liked you because you didn't like me.
Yeah. And deep down, you don't have you didn't think you had you deserved true worth. You didn't think you were worthy of true love and belonging. No. And I helped satisfy that need to continue to make you feel like you weren't worthy of loving belonging.
Yeah, and I wish that wasn't true. But yeah, there was a fit. It just wasn't a healthy fit. And so I just kept telling myself, if I am good enough, or if I can figure this out, or if I can love you well, you might change your mind. And I didn't think you would necessarily change your mind. Even backing the clock up, like when I asked you to marry me, people were like, oh, are you sure she'll say yes? And I was like, oh, hell no. Like, I think it's a coin flip. I think it's a 50-50. And I look back at that and I thought like, oh, this is me, who typically is kind of conservative and doesn't take risks, trying to take a risk in a way that really matters to me. And now I look back and think, that's all true. But it's also kind of maybe like could have had some more voices speaking to me about like, why is it a coin flip? Because I don't know that you have to be 100% certain, but like, I think we've both seen these videos where couples, especially like, gay couples are kind of leading the way, will propose to each other.
Yeah.
I never don't like fall into like just waterfalls of tears because of how beautiful that is, but also how I wish we could have had something like that,
I think queer couples there's a huge part of the liberation I've found in our marriage, like watching the way the LGBTQ community proceeds in relationship, the questions they ask, the way they've explored their own selves, the way they've understood their own sexuality in ways I've never even truly explored, the way they've understood partnership in ways I didn't understand or explore before I entered a relationship.
Yeah.
And no, watching two people like wildly and radically choose each other and want to choose each other is something I think happens in straight relationships, but watching the way that even in the act of ceremony, a lot of the queer couples in my life will ask each other to marry.
Yeah.
Like they both get the chance to consent and ask and participate.
Yeah.
And that's not that's not the symbolism nor ceremony we have around straight relationships. But I think men deserve that. I think men should be chosen. I think men should be asked. I think men should consent. I think men should be enthusiastic.
I think we're making progress as a culture. It's funny how much progress we have made, I think, as a culture. It doesn't feel like that all the time, but 20 years is a significant amount of time, even here. You know, like I don't. I guess it's also just our own life. Like we're twice as old almost. Like you know, so like you can look. I think like we've been married now for almost as long as we weren't. Like which is.
Yeah, you know, we've been together for longer.
We've been together longer than we have not, and so it kind of feels like at very least there needs to be an unwinding. I don't know if that's the word that keeps coming to my mind, which is like.
For you and I?
For you and I. Like, to build something different. I don't know if different means in the relationship or not in the relationship yet. Like, that seems different on different days. Like, I think you've already established this. We have a deep level of, like, commitment and affection for each other. And we're definitely committed to doing the best we can to parent our kiddos.
Yeah, by our kids.
But we've been also talking about, like, I don't know.
Taking a marriage sabbatical?
A marriage sabbatical, yeah. Like, where you get a chance. I mean, I'd love for you to kind of talk about that a little bit, about, like, just the degree to which maybe starting with our relationship or maybe even before you kind of lost your own voice and how you've been looking to try to find it or what that feels like. I don't know. I'm sure you're not alone in this. I just don't think there's people putting language to it.
I mean, just so much of the basic foundation of the life that I've built here in my life everywhere was based on a version of me who said yes to a lot of things I really should have said no to. And so because for so many reasons I didn't have the capacity to really I didn't think I had the option to say no, quite honestly. Right. In so many occasions I didn't really truly think that was an option. Yeah. And so I had practiced for so long basically numbing myself so that I could proceed in things I did not truly want. I'm so well practiced in like numbing myself or kind of refusing to truly look at things as for what they are, because honestly, if I had to, then I would have to reckon with the fact that so my entire life is not something that I would really want. It doesn't reflect who I am at all. But I'm so well practiced at. In the movie Crash, there's one moment where one character says to another, like, is an insult, like, you could tell where Hispanic people park on their lawns, where like there's this like track of grass, and that's not neither here nor there, but this is a kind of an analogy that lives in my mind because I feel like the grass in my mind has been driven over and over again. And so those pathways of like numbing myself or not really being present in the moment, like disassociating almost from my life is the most well-worn pathway in my mind because I spent so much time practicing that exact thing. Saying yes when I really wanted to say no, agreeing when I didn't really agree, choosing the comfort of others or what I perceive to be the comfort of others over my own voice, opinions, and time. And so I know for sure that I would like to practice a new way of being, and that would be the best way for me to love anyone. Anyone, yeah. You, me, everyone.
Yourself, yeah.
And knowing also you can't really love others well unless you love yourself. So anyway, that's something I really long to practice, but I think it would have to be in a time and a space that was distanced from some of my own patterns, like physically distanced. Yeah. I've tried to practice that here in our own lives, and I've gotten better, but I really think I'll find it more in a more whole way on my own for a season.
Yeah, how do you let grass grow back in a place where it's just become mud caked? You know, just
right,
like,
exactly. And I still occasionally have to drive up on that space.
Yeah, you gotta leave it. Yeah, there's a reason why they put markers around, like don't walk here.
Right, when something's trying to be restored. Exactly.
Yeah. I remember actually in our first year of marriage, I don't know if you remember this or not, but somebody from, I think it was Mary Kay, came up to you and was like trying to get you to like join their pyramid scheme.
Yes.
And you came home and you were like so sad that you had said yes to this person. And I was like, what is going on? That like you can know that you don't want something, but you're so afraid of letting down even a stranger that you say yes. It clicked for me that you had done the same to me. Like fully, oh, like I just kept asking, I kept being persistent. You had told me no in all the ways you knew how to say no, but because you're a people pleaser and because you didn't have this other direction and because I'm not the worst option,
Right.
we went forward with it. But like, it was a gut punch. But I kind of thought like, and what I typically do is when I get afraid of something, I just kind of think, well, just put your head down and keep trying, you know. So I think unfortunately though that caused me to never really listened to you in those early years, especially.
Yeah.
Like my own fear that you would not change your mind. And I should say this too, like I think you pointed out to me one time that like I never going into this marriage would have said you needed to change anything. Because I'm like, I love you the way you are. I'll be the one that tries to change. But I vastly overestimated like how good I would be at that. And also, the idea that you love everything about someone except for the fact that they don't like you is asking them to change. I wanted you to change. I wanted you to like me. Like that is a change. Like so I just wasn't being very honest with myself, and I think I'm trying to do a better job of that now, but it is really hard.
So we've been married for 20 years and we hold both. I've never seen anyone talk about holding both grief and joy at the same time in something that is almost universally panned as a good thing.
Right.
Like people are like happy or
just
that long term
marriage.
long term relationship means that you've accomplished something good. To be quite honest, like there's a lot of ways in which I think my life would be better. I think even your life would be more whole and better. And even to some extent the life of our kids would be better. Had the most acute season I wanted to get divorced was when our kids were little. And I look back and I'm like, that would have been hard, but there'd be some ways in life in which everyone was more whole.
Might have rebuilt.
Had we done that? Had I done that? Had I had the courage to do that? So this idea that somehow our kids' lives are better and our lives are better just because we stayed married is...
And better's a hard thing.
I think we need to redefine everything.
We do. Yeah. It's not that it's not good. I mean, I think our kids are doing well. But the biggest deficit in terms of values is community and like what you grew up with versus the complete absence of what I had growing up. Love isn't enough. Like you need people. Like you need a community around you, or other barriers. I guess you could be rich or
Social
something.
fabric, a system of support.
Systems of support.
Humans need each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let us know if you've also struggled.